everyone. Welcome to Marie's Scrappy Creations, where we sew the scraps of your life into beautiful creations. Today, I dug down deep in my scrap pile. Now, actually, I didn't. It's all right at the top. I think my whole life is my fabric scraps. Anyway, you want to see what I made? I made this one before I filmed the tutorial, okay? Now this is a lanyard made strictly in reds. I just dug through my scrap pile and found some reds. But look at what we made together. Nice and colorful. It's a little bit longer, as you see. You're able to use all kinds of scraps to make it. And who wouldn't like to receive one of those? You could gift it to someone who might need one. You could have one for yourself, and they make great gifts. So if you're interested in learning how to make a scrappy lanyard, you stick with me today and we're going to do it together, just like we do everything. So hang around, stick with me, dig into the scrap pile, go grab your scraps. You need them about 5.5 to 6 inches wide. And let's go meet me over at the cutting table and I'm going to show you what you need. All right, so what I did today was I dug through my scrap bin, and the only thing that I did is choose fabrics that I thought would look good, but I also cut them at varying widths. So some of these were much longer. Okay, I didn't do any measuring. Boy, a lot of them look alike, but they are different, as you can see, one to another. Some of them are narrower than others, but I did cut them all to just between 5.5 and 6 inches side to side, because we're going to end up with a 4-inch width when we get done folding and sewing. So you want to give yourself enough room to work with, because we're going to be sewing these together. Then you're going to need, I call them a lobster clasp. I think that's what they're called. Lay it down there. Let's see, I'll get a zoom in on that so you can see what we have there. And they do come differently. I've seen them. I thought I had one out. Oh, I do. This actually came off an item that I had. So I know they come in different thicknesses as well. These ones weren't as thick as what I was hoping they were when I bought them, but this is 1 inch going across here. So this tutorial is going to be for a 1-inch clasp. So you'll need that. Now, you do not have to use cotton batting in these. I personally have tried it both ways, with and without. I like it better with the cotton batting, and I have strips left over from when I made key fobs. So these are just some cotton batting, and they are cut at 3/4 of an inch, just so I could fit it in the 1-inch gap with a little bit of room. And then it's still kind of tight. But anyway, 3/4 of an inch of scraps of the cotton batting. You could use fusible fleece, you could use nothing at all, you could use some interfacing, anything at all that you want to use, because these are scrappy creations. I used my universal foot for this. If you wanted to get picky, you certainly could use a 1/4-inch foot. But what we're going to do first is we're just going to place these together. What I'm going to do is pair them up, okay? And as I said, I haven't put these in any kind of order. So I'm going to pair the whole thing up and make a stack to take over to the sewing machine. And we can sew the first time. And I will take you to the sewing machine with me. You'll find that these are very quick to make. They don't take a lot of time. They don't take a lot of effort or thought. And you could use a piece of fabric if you wanted to, but you know me, I like to use scraps. So I'm going to finish pairing these up and I'll meet you over at the sewing machine. All right, so I have these stacked in sets of 2 in no particular order because we're scrapping. So here we go. I have a leader to begin with, and I'm just going to speed this up because I'm going to sew these using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, although since they're scraps, that's not necessary. You could be using your universal foot if you want to. You could use a zipper foot. You use whatever you have handy. This part doesn't matter. So here, let's go. All done with that. I had to take my pin cushion off while I was sewing that because I would have kept hitting the camera. And you know, I am such a klutz with that camera all the time. It's a wonder you guys watch because I'm all the time hitting that camera with one thing or another and making it shake and doing all that sort of business. I poked myself this morning for the first time with my needle, not just once, but twice. I did it right here, and I did it with the big kitty cat ones. I went and I drove it in there, and I went right in there, and I went, ow, and I pulled it out, and I went to put it back in, and it slid off the side and did it yet again. So that's how brilliant I am. Not just once, I get to do it twice. Okay, so I'm just taking the pins out of these. I'm going to save the ironing for the end, although the first one of these I made like this with this many scraps. I ironed as I went, but for ease of filming and things like that, we'll do it all at the end. Besides, the other one I made with smaller scraps. Let me show you close up. And I had one left over that didn't go with the pair, but we'll see if we need it. Okay, this is made of just red scraps and strings. And as you see, some of the pieces were narrower than others. I had some that were really small, like that one, and some larger, small again. But I just thought, you know, using all my red scraps would make a nice lanyard. All right, so let's open these up and see what we have here. Because you guessed it, we're going to sew them into pairs again. So now you want to start paying attention to your colors. The only thing that I don't do is put a blue next to a blue or a red next to a red when I'm working this way. My great-grandmother, many years ago, like 50 years ago now, I'm telling my age, when I sat underneath her sewing machine and handed her the scraps for her quilt, I was trying to match, and she told me not to do that. It was best to just grab it and go, unless it was the same fabric. All right, so let's see. Let's go with this one. It's easier to do this when you've got even more scraps, like for a quilt, because then you don't have as many chances of messing up, you know, like getting colors next to each other, because I'm not paying attention to what's coming up or what I have left. So if I'm left with something that I don't expect to, I guess I'm not going to, but you see what I'm saying? Like if I had a blue next to a blue or something, it's going to work out. And these make great gifts for a lot of different people depending on their jobs. a nurse, a secretary, any kind of office worker, all sorts of jobs, a mailman. I was going to say a postal carrier. Yeah, that kind of is the thing. I guess mailman is an old term back from childhood. Okay, I'm going to take these over and sew them. You want to come with me? Okay, let's go. Now, I should fess up and tell you guys that I didn't plan ahead because, you know, when I'm sewing by myself, when I'm not filming, I really don't plan ahead very often. I just try stuff out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I fix it. And I have no idea if I have enough scraps here to make the length of lanyard that we need. But if I don't, you know what? I have a scrap pile that is like a mountain. No, I really have a lot of scraps. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit so that you can see more of my mess. Try to turn that. I guess we don't need to zoom out too much. Want to see how long we have. I should have enough strips, I would think. So I'm going to lay these out in 2 piles. Does that look okay? Should I switch that around? Blue next to green. I kind of like that blue next to the green. I think you're right. I think I'll go that way. Now this time, I'm not going to take you with me to the sewing machine because then I'd have to move my tripod and my phone again, my camera, whatever. And I think that you guys get the drift of what I'm doing. So I'm just pinning it. I'm going to take it over and sew these 2 seams and come back and we'll see what we've got. You wait right here, won't you? Okay. Oops, I forgot to shut my air conditioner off. I never know if you guys can hear that, so I do try to shut it off when I'm filming. And I'm filming this afternoon and I have a live stream to get ready for. So, okay, let's see. I should have been measuring. That's 29 inches. And that's 27 inches. So this is a little bit longer than I need. So who let me go this long? So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm still going to connect these 2 pieces, and whatever I end up cutting off can go into my next project. Because the first one of these I made, let's see how long it was. It was about 39 inches. And to me, it was a little bit short. And I know there are tutorials that will tell you to cut them at 36. Everybody has a preference. So as I always say, do it the way you want it for you. You don't have to follow my directions or anyone else's to a T. You do what feels right for you. Okay, so I'm going to sew these 2 strips together. I think I will do red and gray together. Like this. And I'll be right back. Now you see how quick I did that, and I set up my sewing machine and everything. So I didn't cut anything off yet. I'm just going to press these. Actually, I probably should pull out a little bit more cord. I almost took everything right off my stand over there, and you guys would have heard the whole thing go crashing down. That would have been a disaster. It kind of looks like a scarf. And I'm going to press my seams open here in just a moment. And I use sizing, spray starch sizing, I guess is what you call it. Magic sizing. But I don't get to that yet. First of all, I'm going to move this and measure what I have, because there's no sense. I don't need the whole thing. So get you in here so you can see. Got it folded in half, and it's at 27, almost 28 inches. So that's way too long. I'm going to measure it to about 21. So I've got 42 inches. That looks close enough. And I can save that for something else. Okay, let's get this ironing board back here and get this show on the road. I was saying to a friend of mine about how cruddy my ironing board cover always looks. And this is a new one. Maybe it doesn't look so bad on camera. Maybe I should just look at it through my lens, and then I wouldn't be so horrified. Okay, I'm just opening the seams. There's a little bit of steam. I'll come back and spray that. I'm just going to open the seams as I go. Now, just like as if we were going to make a strap, we're going to fold this wrong sides together, matching up your edges. I'm going to put on a little steam. And you know, the sizing that we have already sprayed on here is going to help hold this, okay? So you'll have a nice seam. I'm going to grab my clapper because I find it works really well, especially like when I'm making my straps and I need a good crisp edge. I use that clapper because I don't know how I got by without it. When I first asked my son to make it, I wasn't sure, you know, when he brought it to me, if it was going to really work the way they said it did. But boy, oh boy, I love it. I know, I've mentioned it before. I'm crazy over these. Crazy. I had something that didn't want to fold there. That wasn't looking very good. And of course, the steam helps too, but let me hold that down there. Okay. We'll open that up, and you can see that nice crisp line that we have there. We're going to fold right in, almost touching, just not quite. And what I do is I go along and finger press just to kind of keep it where it needs to be. And I'm going to work my way across there just like this, because then when I go to take the iron across it, I don't have to worry so much about it not being in place. It depends on what I'm doing. If this wasn't Scrappy with all these pieces, I could just whiz right along there with the iron. 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, as they say. But because I have all these scraps and I want these lines to be lined up, because that's what lines should do, I am going to do it this way. And as I always say, you do it whatever way works for you. So now that that is like that, I'm going to come along with my iron. Just give it a quick press. No need for much muss or fuss. It's that blue and gray seam that doesn't want to behave, you know. I don't know what its deal is. And same thing on the other side. We're going to press it towards the middle. And if you make these from yardage, you don't have all the scraps to sew together. You would just cut a 4-inch wide, and I would go by width of fabric, but that's just me because, as I said earlier, I like them a little wider or a little longer down. Some people like them not to fall very low on their chest, so it depends on who you're making it for and how long they want it. So as long as you ask the person you're making it for, or maybe it's you, you just need to ask yourself, how long do I want it? Okay, now but before I do, I'm going to fold it the way it's going to be and make sure that all my little seam lines are lined up. It doesn't hurt to get an extra press, which is all we're doing. So is it necessary? Absolutely not. But I love to iron, and I think it helps hold things where it needs to be. So if there's ever a step I can take with the iron, I usually do. All right. And again, we're going to open it up. But see, now it's been ironed enough that it likes to fold in on itself. So it's going to go where we want it to go. So that's perfect. And I'm going to have to put my pin cushion on. So I hope I don't bump you guys with this, because I could bump the camera so easily. So what I have here is just strips. They're just short little strips left over from making key fobs. I'm not going to go all the way up to the end. Let me see what color's my other end. Maybe you can see it better. The next step after this, we're going to sew our 2 ends together. So you don't want the cotton batting right up to the end like that. You want to give yourself just a little bit of space, because we can pull that into place a little later. Okay, so I'm going to fold that in there. And I'm going to hold that with a pin. I'm not going to put it too close to the end because, like I said, we're going to be sewing that. So 1 pin to hold that. I'm going to take my next piece of batting and I'm going to butt it right up against there and lay it right. See, I'm in that first groove. Fold that over. See where I am here so I can pin it. Make sure I've got both pieces. And I'll go back in the center. Now, before I sew it, I'll come back and make sure that I match all along that edge so it's perfect. But for right now, I just want to pin them into place as best I can to hold them where they need to be. And as I said at the beginning, you do not need to use cotton batting. A lot of people don't. I have lanyards that are made without them, and they're perfectly fine. It's personal preference. I think it gives them a little bit more oomph. Oomph is good. We all like oomph. I could have used some interfacing, like some lightweight or medium weight interfacing. That would have worked as well, just to give it a little bit of substance if you wanted. Okay, so there we are, needing scissors and not having any close by. Because you know, I just don't plan very well. Okay. Going to pin that in place. Now I'm going to come back and straighten everything before I sew. I want all my edges to be straight. I want everything even here. Like this. I don't want it like that. That would not be good, would it? And at the same time, I'm lining up my pieces, my edges, where each piece butts together. Because the next thing we're going to do is put on our hardware and sew our ends together. And you're probably wondering, can I use Wonder Clips? I suppose you could. If you can keep them on there, you go right ahead. But you're going to be sliding a piece of hardware along there. Now, this is the point where you need to pay really close attention to what the lady in front of you is doing. So take your piece of hardware, open this up. Your open side is down, all right? I want you to put it on there like this. So see this open piece? Down. So you're just looking at a straight piece of fabric. Your lobster clasp is up. Put that right in there like that. I'll show you here when I get it through. Okay. That's what it looks like. Okay. And you can slide this down. Don't poke yourself with your pin. Now, go follow it all the way down, and without twisting, bring your other end up. Okay. Open them up. You have right sides together. Pin or clip, whatever makes you happy. Clip those two ends. It can be a little fiddly, but you can get it. It just takes a minute. And this makes the neatest looking lanyard. Now, I made them the year our granddaughter went to college. She was making them. I tried a few. In my land, we were always messing with a great big hump of fabric, and we didn't realize there was another way to make them like this. Wait till you see this. So we're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew right straight across there, or that's what I'm going to do. And oops, I guess I ought to make that nice and straight. That wouldn't be good, would it? I'm going to fold that batting out of the way. I'm going to sew that, and I will come back and show you. You wait right here. Okay, now this is what we should have. It looks like a lumpy mass, but we're going to take our iron, which is just nearby. I'm going to take one of those pins, excuse me, one of those pins out of there. Move my cotton back, and I'm going to press this. It just takes a second. I'll probably press this seam open like I did the other ones. And then I'm going to press the fold lines back into it. It will only take a minute. Move move the cotton out of the way and repress my line. Because the fabric's been ironed and folded enough that it basically knows where it's supposed to go and should behave itself pretty well. But because we sewed that line in there, we just have to coax it a little bit. Now we bring this out. And if you don't have enough, I did this I actually didn't make a mistake. I did this on purpose. You see how there's a gap? You can just pull that up a little bit because cotton is very forgiving that way. It will give you a little stretch. So I'm going to get all my pins in a row because we're almost done. And this might have seemed like it took a little longer because I'm showing you in a tutorial, but once you make one, wait till you see how fast these things go. They're really fast to make. They make a great gift. They're great at craft fairs. Now, the biggest decision you have to make now with a Scrappy one is what color thread do you want to use? I'm going to use white. I'm going to take you over to the sewing machine with me so that you can see me stitch this. And what I'm going to do is stitch about 1/16 of an inch from this edge right here. And I'm going to flip it the other way and do the other side. So let's go give that a shot. Okay, now my air conditioner is on because I was roasting like a duck just for you guys. I was. So you can see that my hardware is here. It doesn't matter where you start, you're going to be moving that hardware out of your way no matter where you are. I'm going to move my needle position over to the right. If your machine has that, great. If it doesn't, you can still do this. I've done it for years on a machine that did not change needle position. It's not a game changer. Okay, I will be removing my pins as I go. And here we go. Okay, now I have gone all the way around on both sides. I like to go down through the center and I'm going to use a fancy stitch. I use the serpentine stitch, which is just kind of a swirl, and that will hold my batting in place as well as I guess it will just hold the batting in place. It looks a little fancy. You don't have to do it. You could do a straight line, but I would recommend something that will hold that cotton batting down. So if you use cotton batting, you definitely want to do this. I'm going to go backwards one stitch with a straight stitch. I'm going to my serpentine stitch and I go with a 5.5 width and a 3.0 length, and away we go. And believe it or not, that came right along to the exact same spot that it started. I can't believe that. All right, so as you were going, you're pulling this along ahead of you to keep it out of the way, but it stays out of the way. Now let me meet you over at the table for a moment. Now you could call this done and call it a day, okay? Just like that. But a friend of mine showed me something and I kind of like it. So choose where you want everything to be and say that you're happy with the red being right here. You can lay this, like a little V, okay? I fold mine, if I have that fabric, about even. Just make a little V, hold it with a pin, and what we're going to do is go over to the sewing machine and sew from one side to the other, holding that V in place. I'm going to do that and I'll come back and show you. Let me trim the threads from this. And if I would have used matching threads, it would have looked much nicer. And I am going to tear this out and use red, but I wanted you guys to be able to see what the stitches look like. So I went back and forth. I did kind of go in reverse there, as you can probably see. But like I said, I'm going to take these stitches out and go in red. I just simply wanted to show you how it goes. So that lays much nicer on you when you put this around your neck, when you take that extra step right there. So because we use so many scraps in this, our creative word of the day today is going to be scraps, because we all have them, we all love to use them, and if you're hanging out with me, you just know you have to use them because they're my favorite thing in the world. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today here at Marie's Scrappy Creations. I hope you have a fabulous day. I hope you have a great weekend. If you're watching this the day it comes out, I hope you had a great weekend. Be safe out there and be kind. The world needs more of that. And I'll see you next time right here at Marie's Scrappy Creations. Take care.